Starting the jump with some breaking news. Our senior insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, reporting that Paul George and the Clippers have agreed to add 4 years to his contract, an extension worth up to $190 million. This comes just a week after Paul said he wanted to retire as a Clipper. So now to discuss this further, the man who broke the story, Woj, welcome back to The Jump. How did this extension come about?
Hey, Rach, good to be back. Well, Rachel, this was, really from the time that the Clippers made the trade with Oklahoma City, at the start of free agency a year ago, getting that trade in place with Oklahoma City was really the final key to getting that commitment from Kawhi Leonard. I think there was an expectation, that Paul George wanted to be there long term. And this was a pretty easy contract for both sides. He got certainly, the max contract that he could get. He's committed now for 5 years, $226 million potentially, can have that player option in 2024, 25. But this was for Paul George, a chance to come home to Southern California, a Clipper organization that's been built around he and Kawhi Leonard. And so I think it was a pretty easy one for the Clippers and Aaron Mintz and Paul George to lock this up. I think they started to talk about the mechanics of the contract here in the past week once the Clippers got through free agency and the draft.
Yeah, and look, if we think back to 2014, where Paul was after that horrible leg injury, people wondering if it was the end of his career. If you look at the amount of, I believe it's up to, depending on what contracts end up being worth, up to $290 million that he has signed since then, it's pretty remarkable that he has been able to build out that second half of his career like that, and also shed some light, Woj, on the Clippers and how much they gave up for Paul George if they are now getting him through this extension as well. It's not that he, quote, could leave after this season. You brought up Kawhi Leonard, though, because he is still in that position where he has an option to leave after this upcoming season. Does Paul's extension mean anything for Kawhi's future with the franchise?
Well, it certainly, from the Clippers' perspective, makes it a lot easier to not have both players going in to the possibility of free agency. But having Paul George locked in, now for Kawhi Leonard, listen, this was a plan that he was a part of. And listen, last season didn't end. The playoffs didn't go the way they wanted them to go. And certainly there's a lot on Kawhi Leonard and Paul George with the new head coach in Ty Lue to get this figured out and to have a team that certainly at least gets to the Western Conference Finals and a potential showdown with the Lakers. They have ground to make up on the Lakers. There's no question about that. But there's been no indication that Kawhi Leonard has, really any doubts about the decision to be with the Clippers, how they're moving forward. Again, just like Paul George, this is home for him. But certainly, there had to be changes with this Clippers team. You've seen that this offseason with them. But by all appearances, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard have remained in lockstep. But things change in the NBA. If you're the Clippers, you want to have a season where they maximize their group and leave no doubt. But as you know, until you get a player signed, he isn't signed. But I think just getting this Paul George deal done takes a great deal of pressure off of the Clippers. And as you said, Rachel, they gave up so much to Oklahoma City. This is a player that, they had to get locked down long term, and they've done that now.
Yeah, you make up a great point. Things change in the NBA, which leads me to my next question, because I want to check in with you on the James Harden saga. If you think about where we were in training camp a year ago compared to now, it is remarkable how quickly things change. Where do things stand on any potential trades for James Harden and the Rockets?
Rachel, I think the Rockets continue to want to try to slow play trade talks the best they can. They're not certainly in a rush to go out and find a deal and put one together that might leave them, ultimately short of getting the kind of massive haul that you've got to get for a player like James Harden, to let a market develop, let teams' interest develop over time. And get him back on the court in Houston. Get him on the floor with John Wall. See if you can get John Wall back to all-star form, and see if there's any momentum you can get back with the Rockets. As we've talked about, he still has 2 years left on his deal. They don't have to rush their way into a trade, but listen, it's going to continue to be at the forefront of conversations all over the league. It is a lot of pressure on an organization. It is a lot of distraction, especially with a new GM, a new head coach. This thing doesn't go away. You get asked about it every day. That tension is there every day. It's not easy to move forward like this for an organization, but if they're gonna slow play it, if they're gonna figure out how to get the best possible deal, it's something that the Rockets are gonna have to learn to live with.
So fascinating to watch that develop. All right, the very Natalie dressed Adrian Wojnarowski, thank you so much for joining us, Woj. We will see you soon.
Thanks, Rach.
All right, with that, I'd like to bring in our resident coach, David Fizdale, our Hall of Famer, Jackie MacMullan. Welcome, friends. And, Coach, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to the news of this big extension for PG?
I'm going to call him for a loan. That's a great deal for him. I'm really happy for him. You know, nothing better for a guy in his hometown to get a big contract and for a team to show how much they really want you. Obviously, I thought the Clippers should and had to do this because they gave up a lot, right? Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best young players in the league. Gallinari, a ton of picks. And so this has to work out. And I think they're showing how invested they are by taking this step forward. And look, let's not get it wrong. Paul George is a baller. He's a two-way player. He's a guy that's got the potential to make all-league teams. I think it's a good investment on the Clippers' part by showing this. I think now the big step is going to be Kawhi Leonard taking it to another level and showing why he had to have his guy in Clipperland. You know, I think that because Kawhi demanded that he wanted him there. And so I think Kawhi now has to step up and show why he wanted him there. And now they got to go out and get a championship done.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, David. This was a package deal when they came, right? So Kawhi and Paul George wanted to play together. Paul George has now said, all right, I'm here for the long haul. And I'm sure he's hoping, and the Clippers are hoping, that Kawhi follows suit. You had to get this done, and I know there's a lot of unhappy Clipper fans that are looking at Paul George's playoff results and saying, are you kidding me? Why are you paying this guy all this money? But I think Steve Ballmer and the Clippers are smart to take the longer view of Paul George's career. He did have a tough postseason, as did most of the Clippers. And I think his Game 7 sticks in everybody's craw still. But remember, he was coming off double shoulder surgery. We heard him speak of his struggles inside the bubble with the mental health aspect of that, which I do not think we should diminish in any way, shape, or form. So what this tells me is the Clippers are not overreacting to their early exit in the playoffs. They have a new coach. They're going to restart. They have new players. And they're going to go forward with these two guys and hope they can lock Kawhi up as well.
That double shoulder surgery point, Jackie, I think is so important here because obviously that wasn't affecting him per se in the playoffs in the bubble. But he didn't really have an offseason, and he didn't even start the season last year with the team. So this year it's short, but he has had an offseason, and hey, it's longer than if they had advanced further in the playoffs. So he had that. Had an offseason. You know, I've been told that he's been getting back to a lot of the training and things that he did before he had that season that put him in the top 5 MVP voting back in Oklahoma City. So we'll have to see if this is a bet that is going to be a smart bet. But so clearly the Clippers think so. And look, you do have Kawhi Leonard, player option after this upcoming season. Jackie, do you think Kawhi will commit to the Clippers, especially after this PG noise?
It seems to me he would, Rachel, but I have given up trying to guess what goes on inside Kawhi Leonard's head. I'll be honest. And I do think we should point one other thing out for the cynics that I heard from shortly after this news broke, and that is Paul George asked to be traded out of the Pacers, asked to be traded from OKC. So he has locked up and says he wants to, remain there for the remainder of his career. But in his past 2 places, he has requested a trade. Nothing's ever certain in the NBA.
Hey, and you know what? Right now,